Welcome to The Long Way Round. I'm Malcolm Byrne. I'm your host for the next 2 hours here on Radio Kingston, WKNY FM 1079, AM 1490, and on the internet anytime at radiokingston.org. My guest tonight, my first guest tonight, I should say, is a local business person, Chris Hewitt. Chris Hewitt is the executive director of the Hudson Valley Current, a Kingston-based economic development nonprofit that keeps money local and strengthens the supply chains of our main streets. Chris is the co-founder of the organization's local currency, The Current, and creator of HVC's other two primary projects, Tilda's Kitchen and Market and Midtown Lively. Chris and his wife, Nicole, raised their kids, Elias, 21, and Cora, who's 19, in Kerhonkson, and now they get to enjoy the house and garden together while the kids are at college. As a lifelong publisher, Chris went from creating activist national publications to a hyperlocal good news magazine. He stays active these days as a legislator for District 21 on the Ulster County Legislature, where he serves as chair of the Energy, Environment, and Sustainability Committee. Cooking and sharing our local abundant food is his passion. Welcome to The Long Way Round, Chris Hewitt.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Pleasure to have you back. Well, pleasure to see you again, and it's great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
So you're definitely very active in the community, and that's a fantastic thing. I guess my first question would be, were you always local hyper focused, or is this did you have sort of an epiphany that maybe this is where it starts?
I think during college, as an activist, we thought globally, and the publication we started in 1996 was called Express Magazine. Our slogan was social networking for global change, and back then people would say, what do you want to do in the future? And I would say, I want to change the world. I want to make the world a better place. And I had 20-year-old ambitions of changing everything, and very optimistic and global in my view. Mm-hmm. So over time, I started realizing, because we had this national publication that was in 22 states and 5 provinces of Canada, that being that global was hard to make an impact. That having the message was great to be that large, but making an impact on the community scale is what started to be more effective.
I see.
So I was publishing activist publications all these years, which actually got some people angry at us that were trying to change their mind or be aware. And once I became a master gardener with Cornell Cooperative Extension and a beekeeper and a property manager, I started realizing what people want to hear about is what we have in common.
See.
Yeah, so I started Country Wisdom News in 2010 and started publishing about good news about local communities.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, a lot of what gets done here at Radio Kingston is pretty local focused. I mean, from the top down, there isn't really a top, but you know what I'm saying? The general ethos is to focus on local stuff. And interestingly enough, over the course of the last 6 years that I've been doing this show, it's evolved and it's become pretty global. And I've sort of been, asked politely, kindly to tone that down a little bit and refocus. So I'm really happy to have you on the show, because you're like the poster child in Kingston for local. You sure are. I mean, and Tilda's Kitchen, not only, and I'm going to plug your restaurant, it's great food. You have a great cook over there.
Thank you.
He's something special, so hang on to that guy.
Yeah.
I haven't met anybody up north I used to live in Louisiana that makes grits that good.
Yeah.
So
yeah. We have a great, our slogan is community-inspired global cuisine. So our chef Turbo helps bring a southern flair to some of the recipes. We have Mayan stewed chicken, for example, that's inspired by the local Guatemalan community. And we just hired a new chef who's bringing really high nutrition foods that are very local. Holly Shelowitz is our new nutritionist. So the mix of chefs helps us get a lot of culturally inspired cuisine there.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it's a great hang. It's a nice vibe. You've got the performance space. How often, when do you have performances there? Is there like a regular?
Yeah, typically it's every Friday night we have community jams recently from 5:30 to 7. 7 to 8 is one band, and then a different band from 8 to 10. So just last Friday was totally packed in there. It was really amazing.
Who played?
There was a single guitarist who played from 7 to 8. I don't remember her name, but the one from 8 to 10 was a 4-piece jam band that filled the space with so much music. It was a little too much music for the small space, but amazing.
No noise complaints. The cops didn't show up and start.
No, it was over by 10.
Okay. Yeah, that is, well, you're a legislator. You better know your
all the rules.
And also, was that sort of your brainchild, or how did that evolve, the local currency?
Well, as a publisher, people have always wanted to barter with me. So by 2010, when I started Country Wisdom News, I was approached by a couple of guys from Kingston, including our current board president and chair, David McCarthy. And they had the name for the current already. They had some momentum going for the idea of a local currency. And as a serial entrepreneur at the time, I had started many businesses. And David McCarthy gave me a call and said, "Would you like to start a local currency?" And it sounded crazy. And I said, "I'm in." So at the time, I was bartering with over 20 of my advertisers. And I knew by studying local currencies already that local currencies not only stabilize local economies, they help keep track of barters. So the first 20 members were my advertisers.
And so how does that work? I mean, I understand because, I'm familiar, but for someone in the audience that wouldn't, they say, well, what, I don't get that. Like,
well, the IRS...
You're not using dollars?
Yeah.
Credit cards?
Yeah. We're all used to the dollar, but what's great about thinking differently about money is we can start to understand what money is. And so one current is worth $1. The IRS recognizes it as official money, and they call it a barter credit. So one current is one barter credit. So it's a way for us to keep track of barters with each other by earning credits, and then you could spend those with any of the 400 members.
I see. So what would be a working example of that for, let's invent, well, I'll be one of the, who would I be? I'd be somebody wants their old pool removed, and I'm looking for someone to do it for me.
Yeah, well, as an employee of Radio Kingston has been not only a sponsor of things like our open table at Tilda's, but a real collaborator and community member with us. So Radio Kingston has sponsored events, but also earned currents. And so you could say, I'd like 100 currents in my pay this week, and then you'd have 100 currents to hire that carpenter to help with your pool.
I see.
But you don't have to use that. In a traditional barter, you might be locked into that carpenter, but you could choose to go to Seed Song Farm or Tilda's and buy a meal. Now you have a choice of how to use your barter credits.
Cool. I mean, I was talking to someone fairly recently from down in New York City about, because they were like, "Oh, I heard Kingston's a great place. You got a lot of cool stuff going on up there. I've been up there. I love it. With the rough draft, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Yeah, we even have our own currency." And they're like, "Really?" How's that supposed to work?
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite able to articulate that, but they were impressed by the concept of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Internationally, there are thousands of local currencies. In places like Japan, it functions really well. I was at a conference about local currencies in Takayama, and there were 3 currencies in Takayama. So they're all effective. They all work in different ways. Some might support transit and transportation more. Another one might be more oriented toward food and keeping money local differently. But then they're also using the yen to interact on a national and international level.
I see. Had any problems with counterfeiting?
Well, that's always a big question, and it's one of the reasons I got involved in this concept in the first place. I grew up in a printing family, and so I knew a lot about printing and design, and my dad's pressman when I was a little kid would say, "When are we going to print some money?" And I always thought it was a funny joke until I went to a conference at Bard College in 2004. It was called Local Currencies in the 21st Century, and I learned it's legal and possible. And I was excited to start a local currency that was printed and make some beautiful printing that would be really hard to replicate.
Describe one of the for listeners.
Well, what's interesting is as we did research starting in 2010, we found that by starting digitally, we'd have a bigger impact on our economy. because we could see how the currents go from Woodstock to Kingston to New Paltz to Poughkeepsie or up to Hudson. It's in Ulster, Dutchess, and Columbia counties. So digitally, we could see which towns are moving currents and how it's supporting the local businesses. So we actually launched it digitally in 2014, and for 6 years it was digital only. Mm-hmm. And after over 750,000 currents were exchanged, we got a grant to print paper currency. So in 2020, we launched the single, the 5, the 10, and the 20. And each bill has a native animal on the front, and their habitat and diet are on the back. Oh. So the 1 is a rusty patch bumblebee.
Learn as you spend.
Yes, exactly. It's an educational bill. The 1 is a rusty patch bumblebee. The 5 is a great blue heron. The 10 is a blue-tailed skink, and the 20 is a rainbow trout.
And those are all native plant or critters.
Yes, flora and fauna. And I think the rainbow trout was introduced, and the brown trout is more native, but the rainbow trout is more beautiful for the 20.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, is there also some hint of anti-capitalist thinking behind this?
No, but I would say there's a strong current of post-capitalism.
Post-capitalism maybe is a better.
And I intentionally use the word current because we've been building undercurrents like Tilda's Kitchen, Midtown Lively. I call those undercurrents because it's hard to understand the current. It's hard to understand money. Even the dollar can be hard to understand when we start to discuss its roots, what it's backed by, where it comes from, who benefits from it, how extractive is it, how are loans made. You know, we start to analyze the dollar, we start to have questions. So the current brings up a lot of questions for us, and our slogan used to be money made by local trade. But about a year ago, we changed it to it's just money. It's just money. It works like money, but also we have this post-capitalist leaning, like offering free food every day, free soup every day at Tilda's.
Yep.
In 2 weeks, we have our open table. Every last Tuesday is free breakfast and lunch all day. And we're starting to help pay rent in the building for the tenants upstairs from Tilda's, just to show that a corner store can have an impact on local residents.
Yeah, that building, when I first moved here years ago, 20-odd years ago, it was pretty rough. I mean, the scene in the back there, the park.
I've heard about it.
Yeah. Well, I used to jokingly say, because I had moved from down south in Louisiana, New Orleans, in fact, and I lived in a fairly funky neighborhood, but I kind of liked it. And when I moved up here, I thought, I can't live in Rhinebeck.
Yeah.
I'm not going to live in Woodstock. But Kingston, you could still, I'm not boasting, but you could buy crack right across the street on that corner over there. And I thought, well, I'm not buying crack, but at least I can if I want to.
And I heard that on the corner of O'Neill, there was a chain link fence that kept the crime in.
Yeah.
They tried. It looked like it was keeping crime out, but it actually kept the crime in.
No, it's actually kind of cynically true.
Yeah. It was a rough corner when we moved in 2020.
It's a lot different there now, though.
Yeah. I think we not only did we bring a lot of life there, the bike lanes and the reconstruction of the Broadway corridor made it human-centered and more about bicycles, pedestrians, community focus, and we just watched that corner change dramatically over the last 4 years. All
of Broadway has in fact, for 15 years when I first moved here, I said, if anybody can ever get Broadway together, the town will come back. And it essentially, for the most part has. I mean, half these businesses used to be these buildings that we're looking at across the street were vacant.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on.
Yeah. And then we can ask the question, is it gentrification or is it something different happening?
Well, that is another question. It's always big on our minds about affordable rents and housing and so forth in this town.
Yeah.
As more and more.
Absolutely. I've heard someone say, what's wrong with gentrification? It means more money is coming to town. But that's not true. Gentrification also includes monocultures.
Yes.
And wiping away the thing that made it exciting in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, even on the street where I live up on West Chestnut Street, and when I first moved there, there used to be a woman, she's no longer lives in Kingston, but her name was Mary Chisholm, and she had a 106 West Chestnut Street was this group home, and, people, always see these people sort of standing outside and, people are like, oh, that place shouldn't be there. But I'm like, you just bought your house for $30,000. Shut up.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to get rid of the place.
Right.
Why do you think you got your house for 30 grand,
Yeah.
in the first place? So,
Right.
so yeah, I'm always aware of that issue myself. And
Yeah.
it is a big issue.
Yeah, and I'm impressed with the city right now with their Brownfield Opportunity Area. Their approach is working with Pattern for Progress. Instead of just having public meetings, public hearings, and hoping communities show up, people are often busy during those meetings.
Sure.
They don't have childcare. They don't have food at that moment. And so they're not going to come to a meeting. And municipalities or cities often make the assumption, I guess, people didn't care.
Right.
But they got a grant to work with Pattern for Progress to get surveys from the Spanish-speaking community, the Quechua-speaking community, the Chinese-speaking community, people who are speaking languages that aren't just English.
Mm-hmm.
They're going, I think, deeper. And it's impressive because that takes more time to slow down.
Sure, of course. And it's, the other thing, I get so frustrated with people who bitch and moan about, the changing demographic of the city. Oh, well, when I moved here, it was all, blah, 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 Italians and Irish people and Germans. And now it's, these other people coming in here from who knows where. And I'm like, yeah, but it's made the town so much more vibrant and interesting and colorful and alive, I mean, maybe I'm spoiled because I spent a lot of my time in Toronto and Canada, which is a very multicultural environment as well, So seeing that happening in this town is really good,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Not to forget about the indigenous people who were here in the first place.
Right. Yeah. We need to have land acknowledgements and work with people like Tiokasin Ghost Tours and programs like First Voices Radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tiokasin is away, but our wonderful friend Keala and Kenny Kelly, who's out in Hawaii, has been filling in and doing a wonderful job.
Oh, nice.
Well, I don't know exactly where Tiokasin is off to, but he's
speaking in Europe.
Somewhere.
Yes.
Somewhere in the European place where they go, look, Siegfried is a real Indian. Touch him, see what it feels like.
Yeah, he's fascinated by his tours because there's a lot of respect for the native and wisdom circles. I think that a lot of times he's in circles with native people, and white people are asked to sit on the outside circle.
Mm-hmm. Take a back seat, brother.
That's right.
What else did I want to add? What is the Midtown Lively? What is Midtown Lively?
We created Midtown Lively as an undercurrent, like I mentioned. It's a monthly publication about food, art, and exchange in Kingston. The website is midtownlively.org if you want to check out some of our articles. But each month we have a theme. The theme for the April issue is Sprout. So I wrote my editorial about living with sprouts right now in all of my windows.
Can I ask you exactly when you sleep?
Well, the publication is kind of a rhythm. I'm a publisher. If you ask me who I am, I'm at my heart a publisher. Fourth generation printing publishing. I realized when I was in sixth grade that I can write backwards, and old school letterpresses, all their type was backwards.
Oh, wow.
And so I kind of have this genetic thing about printing and publishing. So the publication comes out in its own rhythm. We work with the local layout artist, Raquel Stammer.
I know Raquel.
Yep. And so she's been doing the layout each month. I hire Ann Piber and Craig to write the feature article, and our membership director, Emily Sauce, writes the piece about our current member. So there's always a feature about one current member. Mm-hmm. Last month was Family of Woodstock. This month is Me Oh My Farms. So I call that an undercurrent because it's not a monthly publication about currency. That would bore everybody. Nobody really wants to talk about money.
Well, except people who are obsessed with money.
That's right, yes. Some people would like it. Economic theorists, crypto nerds. Economists, definitely. But we're trying to create a general interest publication that shows that we have a lot in common around food, art, and exchange. So I put the word exchange in there to remind us about the reciprocity between the give and take of currency, of food, of eating together, sharing stories. So Midtown Lively is helping us understand currency, and by featuring a current member, by talking about the open table, by promoting tildes, people come into tildes and start to see a currency in action. Our vendors are current members. Everything on our stands in our grocery is for sale in currents. All of our hot meals are for sale in currents. We do catering for currents. So it's now the primary engine of the currency.
Yeah, and I think people do. Well, I know I do. I'm speaking for myself, really. But I respond like when people talk theoretically. After a while, my eyes glaze over, and I become numb in the brain.
Yeah.
But when I see something in action and go, oh, by example,
that's right.
Then I'm much more able to grasp the thing and go, okay, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. For 6 years, since the beginning of the current. Until 2019, I always talked about money and explained what money was to people. And there's a little spot in our brain that disconnects, that makes our eyes roll back for a second. And I would always see the eyes roll back for a second. I'm like, I lost them.
Right.
I can always see when I lose somebody. And I got so sick of it, I said, we need to bring this thing to life. I would ask restaurants to sign up for the current. They would say no. I would try to show them, but there's 3 farms signed up. Here's your budget. You can make it work for you and keep your money local, and none of it will go to sweatshops in China. And after explaining this over and over and becoming exhausted, I started a restaurant. It's an example of how it can work. Sure. And someday when 5 restaurants right around here are using currents, I'll start a shoe store, or I'll start a bread store. Whatever is a gap in our economy, that's the store I'll start.
Yeah, I'm trying to... I've got a few suggestions
for
you.
Cool.
Having lived in Kingston for 23 and a half years, what we really are sorely lacking, to be perfectly honest with you, and I don't begrudge, the lovely Australian couple that have Village Coffee and they've opened the grocery store down there. But what we really lack, and especially as you get closer down to the Rondout and Ponkhockey, is a place where people can buy half-decent fresh produce. Because, if you don't have a car in this, you're kind of, you're at the mercy of public transit, which is
food deserts.
And so, having somewhere where people could go and do that and not, be buying junk.
I think
not that. Hey, I love Stewart's. Nothing wrong with Stewart's.
Yeah. They don't have a good selection of local produce, though.
No, zero.
I like that they're owned in New York State. Their headquarters are in Saratoga Springs.
Their milk that's what everyone likes. The milk.
But, Tildes has a whole assortment of fresh produce every week. We have the YMCA Farm Project, and now there's a new Ponkhockey market on Saturdays, I believe, at Community Action. There's definitely a movement to fill the food desert gaps.
But I mean I'm talking not for the hipster crowd.
Yeah.
I'm talking for low-income people.
Yeah.
Like unwed mother with 3 kids.
Yeah.
That's the people that need the real attention.
I hear you. Yeah.
So, the $12 coffees can, they can.
Good point. I see. But the 3 examples I just mentioned are all nonprofit based. And so at Tildes, we actually have free produce most of the week. YMCA Farm Project is also a subsidized project to have affordable produce. The Ponkhockey market might be free, but that's brand new. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a work in progress.
Okay. We're back with my friend and neighbor, my good friend and neighbor, Chris Hewitt. You're listening to The Long Way Round. I'm Malcolm Byrne. And we're in a very interesting conversation indeed. We'll skip a little bit about forgeries for now, but we're going to get into some music because Chris has put together a little bit of a playlist. And I'd like you to intro the first track. This is a track called Fee by none other than Fish.
Yes. I grew up with a big sister who was a hippie who traveled across the country with the Grateful Dead and the Rainbow Family. The Rainbow Family is a group of people who travel in state parks across the U.S. So my sister was kicked out of the house and disappeared and started traveling with a group of hippies across the United States. And as a Long Island kid growing up, never really seeing any hippies or hanging out with people with open minds, we all thought she was crazy. But when she got back, more peaceful and amazing, she loved the Grateful Dead. I was still too young. And so she actually brought me to the last show Jerry Garcia ever played, the Meadowlands. Mm-hmm. And after that, I became a Fish head in college. And so Fish was huge in touring when I was in college. But when I was 16, my sister had my nephew, Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And that changed my life because she had a home birth, which drove my parents crazy. They couldn't believe she wasn't at the hospital, and my dad couldn't go anywhere near the room. And I was in the room, and suddenly, out of nowhere, I'm 16, and my nephew was born and is suddenly present, and it changed my life. And this song is called Fee. Everyone calls Phoenix Fee, and so all my college friends knew a lot about Phoenix.
Cool. This is Fish with Fee.
In the cool shade of the banana tree, on the rugged trail toward the balcony, a child of the 20th century, a dried up Goliath and a weasel named Fee. Far away in another place, a fading beauty named Millie Grace, a gospel singer with pox on her face and a bamboo cane to help her keep the pace. Fee was a Buddhist prodigy, long past the age of maturity. Someday he knew it would set him free, like it did for Floyd, the chimpanzee. Whoa, Fee, you're trying to live a life that's completely free. You're racing with the wind, you're flirting with death. So have a cup of coffee and catch your breath. Whoa, Fee, you're trying to live a life that's completely free. You're racing with the wind, you're flirting with death. So have a cup of coffee and catch your breath. Fee first met Millie in a bar in Peru. His heart was jumping like a kangaroo, like a beast in a cage in an old Dutch zoo. It was hopping and jumping in wooden shoes. But Floyd was jealous and alone. He wanted Millie for his own, a desperate craving in his bones. Their love, he said, I will not condone. Then one day on a ship to Quebec, Floyd found Fee and Millie on a lover's trek. He picked up a bottle and broke off the neck. It sliced through the air and Fee hit the deck. Whoa, Fee, you're trying to live a life that's completely free. You want to stay with Millie until you're dead, but you just got a bottle upside the head. Whoa, Fee, you're trying to live a life that's completely free. You want to stay with Millie until you're dead, but you just got a bottle upside the head. Millie turned and began to scream at Floyd. She said, you think you're pretty mean. And though she was as thin as a small string bean, she slammed him in the face with a nectarine. Floyd fell back over the edge of the ship till he hung from the rail by his fingertip. Millie said, Floyd, I'll make you lose your grip. With this tiny piece of paper, I can make you slip. So Millie took that paper and did the deed. Floyd hit the water with astonishing speed, and as the sharks circled in and began to feed, Millie knew the weasel was finally free. Whoa, Fee, you're trying to live a life that's completely free. Floyd is dead, he's nothing but a ripple, 'cause Millie took that paper and sliced him on the nipple. Whoa, Fee, you're trying to live a life that's completely free. Floyd is dead, he's nothing but a ripple, 'cause Millie took that paper and sliced him on the nipple. Whoa, Fee,
was Fee by Fish from the album Junta. Junta. Chris, while we were listening to that track, we got into a bit of a conversation, and I said, hold that thought. So the conversation that we were having while the song was playing.
Ah, yes.
Let's talk about that.
Well, you were talking about how musicians or artists can master their tool or their instrument and then back away from that mastery to find more creativity or innovation.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a way that's me in business and capitalism, because I learned how to make money as a kid. I started investing in stocks when I was 12, when I worked for my uncle in his pizza place on Fire Island.
Damn.
Because my parents had us invest 50%.
Good job that I didn't have Coca-Cola
Yeah,
in
I'm
it.
glad that was empty. My parents forced my brother and me to put 50% of our earnings into the stock market.
Oh, my God.
And I was only 12. So all I knew was Disney. So I invested heavily in Disney from when I was 12 to 20. And by the time I got to college, I had a really nice investment in stocks that had quartered and doubled over the years. And so my parents taught me how to be not only a hard worker with a strong work ethic, they taught me how to be mean and crude.
And cutthroat.
And cutthroat, and how to be a good capitalist, and how to leave people behind, how to do better than other people. My parents were pretty kind, and so they actually didn't have high turnover, but they were very mean to their employees often. But my uncle was a jerk. My uncle fired people almost on a weekly basis. So from when I was 12 to 20, I was working for him, and I thought he was a jerk too. Even though he was nice to my brother and me, I didn't like the way he treated people. And so one time when he was screaming at a waitress in front of a whole packed restaurant, and she kicked him where the sun don't shine and quit and walked out, I thought it was the coolest thing I ever saw. I didn't know that was possible. And I was like, wow, that was powerful. And so once I started my own businesses after college and became a serial entrepreneur, I started selling notepads in my neighborhood when I was 10. And then I started a landscaping business with my brother when I was 13 and 14. So over time, I've started many businesses. But just like that instrument and finding a mastery, I had to back away from that direction. And I had to be trained out of my capitalist tendencies and take undoing racism trainings and nonviolent communication trainings, and work with a senior advisor who actually has taught me how to slow down. Because part of the speed of capitalism leaves people out. And the speed of success isn't for everybody. So is it really success? So I think Tilde is a work in progress of me trying to slow down and listen and be patient.
And how does that, because you are also one of our legislators, and is it for Ulster County?
Yeah, Ulster County, I represent Kerhonkson, Accord, and a piece of Napanock.
And how does this sort of play into your work as a legislator here? Because, I'm friends with Phil Erner. I love Phil.
Yeah.
But, the last time we met, we were talking about, because he stopped doing it. He just couldn't handle I forget how you phrased it, was the pace of things, the fact that things weren't moving quickly enough for him. And
that's right. That's interesting, because in government, it moves even slower than the slowness that I'm referring to. It's almost like it becomes a rut, and it becomes a rut of this is the way it's always done. I'm sorry that we don't have health insurance for everyone. This is just the way it's always done. We don't budget enough for our health because this is the way it's always done. We don't budget enough for homeless people. I'm sorry, they're homeless. This is the way it is.
Right.
And I think that breaks people's heart when you can't move fast enough to solve it. When you're in a position of power like a legislator, you're like, I'm a legislator, I guess I can make things better. But then you find you're only one of 23 legislators, and that you have to work with people. And also that's important, because what if New Paltz doesn't want to move as quickly as Kerhonkson, or Woodstock isn't ready for a housing development, but Hurley is, So these things are important to discuss and take our time. In fact, I feel we might be too fast in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, for example, which is often called the Iroquois Confederacy. Those meetings take weeks sometimes, whole weekends where you sit in circle with each other. We have a meeting for an hour and a half to discuss a $10 million package of funding that a developer is getting.
And how often do they meet? Is it once a month? Or?
We have a meeting this Tuesday. There's a public hearing at 7 o'clock, and then it'll probably go till about 10. So the main legislative session is 3 hours. I'm the chair of Energy, Environment, and Sustainability. That's about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm also on Law Enforcement and Public Safety. That's another 2 hours. And then there is Economic Development, Planning, Employment, Education, Agriculture, and the Arts Committee that I'm on. So I'm on 3 committees. It keeps me busy. And to answer your question, how it's related to all of my other work is that I feel like I grew up an activist, wanting to change the world and shout from the mountaintops that things are messed up and we need to fix it, and that there are feasible solutions that are available today. I used to shout that from the mountaintops as people thought I was crazy. So it gets frustrating to shout so long into the wind. So I feel like I realized that as an elected official, which I was inspired by Bernie Sanders. I was a town councilman in Kerhonkson for 4 years before I was a legislator. And he said, if you really want to change the world or change our country, run for office. We should all run for office.
Yeah, I remember him saying that.
Yeah, so that we don't have incumbents in for 20 to 30 years doing things the way it's always done. We need fresh blood. We need your ideas. We need her ideas. We need everyone's ideas at the table so we can create decisions that are for everyone.
Yeah, well, I agree 100% with a lot of what Bernie was saying. The system is, in essence, is, it's a busted political system, that always ends up in sort of a stalemate, we're going to get more funding for the wall, but we're not giving any more money to Ukraine, but we're going to, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just theater.
Negotiations that, aren't as important as the real life negotiations of what's happening around us right here.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone sitting out there on a park bench and they're like, what's that got to do with me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like paying taxes to buy bombs either, but, that's a different story.
Yep.
Let's play another track. Let's play the next track you've got here. It's called High Tide or Low Tide. It's a Bob Marley and the Wailers track.
Wonderful. That is actually my wedding song. My wife and I chose that. It's got reggae influence, but it's a beautiful romantic song. At that time, my wife showed me that most of my music collection was all men. And so I started learning about more female artists. Bob Marley was an early inspiration for me because it's very about social activism, but also cannabis, but also romance. And so I feel like this one is steeped in romance.
Great. This is Bob Marley. High Tide or Low Tide? Bob Marley and the Wailers, of course. High Tide or Low Tide. From what album is that from? Oh, Catch a Fire. That's kind of my favorite Bob Marley. You know, there was something about that band with Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer and all the rest of them that they were really, they laid down some amazing grooves.
Oh yeah,
and you know,
built a movement.
Yeah, when I discovered, a friend of mine turned me on to Bob Marley when I was in high school, and it pretty much blew my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know.
I was 15 when I heard the Legend album, which later I realized was actually great songs from other albums, and then learned about every album over time.
Yeah, I think Exodus was the first record I heard Bob Marley. Exodus.
As a Long Island kid who grew up in a Roman Catholic family, that opened my whole worldview, that there was more than Long Island out there.
Really?
Yes.
You know, it's funny. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. You know, I have friends up in my town in Ontario, Canada, where I grew up, sort of not far north, but north enough that you know, they just that's it for them.
Yeah,
that's the world,
mm-hmm.
The Ottawa Valley. You know, but hey, you know, you gotta love everybody and everybody in it, and so
yeah,
you know.
It's good to travel. I went north to college in Rochester and realized I had an accent, and then I lost it.
Do I have an accent?
Not to
Do
me.
I sound Canadian?
No, not really.
I haven't said about yet.
No, you haven't said a boot.
Out and about. So what's next on the program? Where do you see things in, say, a year or 2 or 5 years from now? Not necessarily with you personally, but with this, you know, this evolving concept of local business and the current.
Well, I think when it comes to its relationship on the global scale, cryptocurrency comes up a lot. People say, oh, is this like Bitcoin? And back in 2014, as we were starting the current, Bitcoin was worth $2 for one Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And back then I would say, oh no, this is nothing like Bitcoin, and almost take offense to the question because it's so different when you start to talk about it. But then Bitcoin became 18,000 for a Bitcoin, 19,000, 20,000. And then at that point I started saying, yes, this is like Bitcoin. And here's how they're different. Because cryptocurrency has been great for the local currency movement. It has opened people's mind to the fact that there's more than the dollar. There's more that we can exchange than just dollars. The IRS no longer considers cryptocurrency to be currency because of its speculative nature. It's very volatile. Mm-hmm. You could buy low and sell high. You could buy high and lose a lot of money. And so because of its speculative nature, it's a speculative asset that's monitored by the Securities Exchange Commission. A local currency is based on local labor, goods and services. It's very based on Main Street and real things like farms and soil. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that local currencies can stabilize our economy so much that they may become so complementary to national currencies that we're going to see the importance of our local supply chains. We learned during COVID we could starve within a week. We almost did. But then food started flowing again. Mm. But if those ports didn't open back up in Manhattan, we could have all starved. And we live in a breadbasket.
Right.
You know, and so global rules and tariffs or trade rules make it so, like in Belize, the fields are filled with sugarcane, but they don't have enough sugar because they can't eat their own sugar.
Try buying a cup of coffee in Guatemala.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what you get? Nescafe.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
They sell it to America, make it into Nescafe, and sell it back to, you know, it's crazy. It's whack.
Yeah, so we have to localize our supply chains in order to go back to a village way of life where we actually cared about the hardware store owners and the grocery owner and the shoemaker. We cared about those families.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the great tragedies of the late 20th century is that everything got sort of eaten up, gobbled up by the big box stores, you know, the Walmart and then the Amazons and all the rest of it. And, you know, people just kind of get used to having anything, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, you know.
I think also our society, America especially, our reliance on carcatecture. Right. Everything is built around the car. We no longer build around the train and the train station.
No, I mean, we could get into a whole show about L.A. You know, the evolution of, you know, why that city turned into a mega car
Yeah.
city. And it didn't used to be. I mean, at one point, just as a brief note of interest, LA had probably one of the world's best public transit systems until about the early 20s. And then Dunlop Tires made a deal with the local administration and said, we can make a lot of money together if we sold lots of tires. And well, how are we going to do that? Well, we sell cars, we sell tires.
Lots of cars. Yeah, General Motors bought all of the trolleys in Manhattan, Brooklyn, all the boroughs, and dumped all the trolleys in a swamp in New Jersey.
Oh, my God.
Because there was too much competition.
Yeah, there you go. So reverse that trend.
Yeah, we're working on it.
One day at a time.
Yeah, I have an optimistic slogan. We've got this.
We got this. Well, speaking of Natalie Merchant, let's play the next track you have here. It's a track by Natalie.
Great.
It's called Motherland.
Yeah, I could tell you the inspiration. I play a lot of music with my family. I learned acoustic guitar in my 30s because I love the idea of a family sitting around playing simple to learn and sing songs. And this song is inspired by the Sicilian tarantella, and my mom is from Sicily.
All right. Natalie Merchant with Motherland from the album Motherland.
Where in hell can you go? Far from the things that you know, far from the sprawl of concrete that keeps crawling its way. About 1,000 miles a day. Take one last look behind. Commit this to memory and mind. Don't miss this wasteland, this terrible place when you leave. Keep your heart off your sleeve. Motherland, cradle me, close my eyes, lullaby me to sleep. Keep me safe, lie with me, stay beside me, don't go. Don't you go. Oh, my 5 and dime queen, tell me what have you seen? The lost and the avarice, the bottomless, the cavernous greed. Is that what you see? Oh, motherland, cradle me, close my eyes, lullaby me to sleep. Keep me safe, lie with me, stay beside me, don't go. It's your happiness I want most of all, and for that I'd do anything at all. Oh, mercy me, if you want the best of it, or the most of all. If there's anything I can do at all. Now come on, shotgun bride, what makes me envy your life? Faceless, nameless, innocent, blameless and free. What's that like to be? Oh, motherland, cradle me, close my eyes, lullaby me to sleep. Keep me safe, lie with me, stay beside me, don't go, don't go. Motherland, cradle me, close my eyes, lullaby me to sleep. Keep me safe, lie with me, stay beside me, don't go, don't go.
Beautiful, emotional piece of music there. Natalie Merchant with Motherland. Very soulful. But sad, but beautiful. Melancholy, I think is the word. So Chris, we've already come to the end of the show here. So I wanted to thank you sincerely for coming in and sharing the time, and I'd love to get you back.
Nice.
Later this year or next year, and see where we're at.
I'd love to.
I'm just going to run these PSAs, and and then after that, I'll play your last track, the Gil Scott-Heron track. But
All right, awesome.
Any last words for the listening audience?
Well, I think I chose the revolution will not be televised because I feel like we've had enough revolution and our evolution will not be televised. We're going through this beautiful evolution of peace and love right now, and I think humanity is waking up, which in the mainstream headlines, we see its opposite.
Right.
So we're not hearing the real story of this beauty we see right here in front of us, and our neighbors and friends are spreading it with us.
Cool. Thank you, Chris Hewitt. You're a man. You're a gentleman.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials.
Welcome to Hour 2 of The Long Way Round. I'm your host, Malcolm Byrne. And my next guest in the studio is Tarak Kauf. He's a former Army paratrooper from 1959 to 1962, the past member of the Veterans for Peace National Board of Directors. He's organized veterans delegations with Ellen Davidson in the West Bank and Palestine, Okinawa, South Korea, and Ireland to stand with local people, resisting war, militarism, and military bases, encroaching on and environmentally destroying their land, along with his partner Ellen Davidson. Tarak is currently organizing a peace walk from Maine to Washington, D.C. for peace, planet justice, and democracy, and especially to call for an end to the genocide in Gaza, a permanent and just ceasefire, and for an end to war and oppression everywhere. Tarak Kauf is also editor-in-chief of Peace Planet News and a 24-page newspaper that comes out quarterly. Welcome to the show, Tarak and Ellen Davidson. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good to be here. We're doing fine.
Well, it's good to see you again. We first met a couple of weeks ago at an event in Woodstock. I can't remember what the official title of the event was, but it was a screening of
Israelism.
Right.
And it was quite well attended. Powerful film.
Yeah. Could you talk just about, for people who haven't seen the film, who may have heard about it but haven't actually seen it?
You want to speak, Shelley? Go ahead.
Sure. It's a documentary that talks about how Jewish youth are indoctrinated to believe that Israel is sort of part of their Jewish identity, and that supporting Israel is the only path for Jews, and it's that the two are inextricably entwined, and they're encouraged to go over there on the so-called birthright tours, and they're encouraged to go join the Israeli military and to become part of Israeli society, and it's a very strong indoctrination that they get, and a couple of people who had broken away from that are kind of they're they follow their path about what they did after they looked around and said, "Wait a minute, this is not something I want to be part of."
Right.
The movie is about two people in particular who were really strongly indoctrinated and absolute 100% Zionist believers to the core, and raised in that type of environment, subjected to all of that, what is really propaganda. In Israel it's called Hasbara.
Are you both Jewish?
Yeah, we are both Jewish. And at any rate, the movie is about how these two had experiences which started to wake them up and realize that, wait, everything is not exactly as we've been told. Something's wrong here. And as they wake up, the movie unfolds. And it's a fascinating movie.
Well, what I enjoyed about the film was it didn't feel completely one-sided. It did sort of portray, you got a sense of what the narrative is from the Israeli side of things, but then you delved into life in Gaza and the West Bank, and also the interaction and the daily issues between people and some of the non-issues. I mean, the film ends on a relatively positive note, doesn't it? By sort of talking about how people used to live together peacefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the system, Zionism, does not want people to live peacefully. And I don't know if that message should have come out. I think it came out in the film because Zionism itself is about the disempowerment and the removing of indigenous people from that land so that, Jewish people can own the entire land. So it's not a system which encourages people living together peacefully. Before people came there, before Jewish people emigrated there from Europe, people were living peacefully. Christians, Jews, Arabs.
Christians, Jews, and Muslims were all living together.
That wasn't
peacefully.
a problem.
The problems began when there was this very intentional immigration into that land by people with the intent of taking over the land and turning it into a Jewish state that did not provide equal rights for the population that was not Jewish.
Well, one of the things that I've been really thinking about lately, because as a goyim, I'm not even a Christian. I don't, I was brought up like probably, your average secular Jew, like we have certain holidays, but we didn't go to church. We didn't pray. We didn't read the Bible. We didn't any of that. And, I think there's a tendency to sort of look when you say, Jewish people, it happens very often where people treat a group of people like a monolith, and what I've learned, especially over the last few months, is there's so many different opinions amongst Jewish people about what that identity is, what Israel means to them or doesn't mean to them, what Zionism even is, and how that relates to being, say, an American Jew living in Minnesota.
Well, the joke is that if you put two Jews in a room, you'll have three opinions. And I'm glad that you said that, because one of the things that strikes me is people who talk about Palestinian rights are frequently accused of being anti-Semites. And one thing that I think is really anti-Semitic is assuming that all Jews support the state of Israel and aspire to live in a Jewish-only state, in a state that is centered around Judaism. I think that to assume that that's something that all Jews want and need as part of their identity, that to me is anti-Semitic.
I want to say something because what you just said. I think you used the wrong word. You said a state that is centered around Judaism. No, it's not centered around Judaism, because the basic tenets of Judaism are not violent, are not oppressive. They're humanistic. They embrace humor, compassion, concern for the other, not
Justice.
to feel that one is superior to the other, not to, they don't, real Judaism does not buy into this chosen people as being higher or separate. Maybe we were chosen to serve, we were chosen to serve others. So I don't feel that Zionism or the Jewish state what they call the Jewish state, reflects Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that what people here are people who are speaking out, people who are standing up for rights of all human beings and against the genocide, which is a clear genocide. And there's no excuse for genocide. Nothing. Zero. You cannot excuse it. You
it's one
cannot
of
say self-defense or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think the people here, the Jewish people here who are doing that, are reflecting what Judaic thought is really about and really stands for. And if it doesn't stand for that, it's not worth anything.
Sure.
If it doesn't stand for love, compassion, nonviolence, respect for humanity, it's not worth anything. Excuse me. So that to me is what Judaism is about, and I don't think you would agree. What you don't.
I guess
interested
what I meant
both.
was a state centered around the Jewish people,
Yeah, that's right. I know.
whatever that means.
Yeah.
Well, I've had some rather interesting earlier. Well, 2 weeks ago, I had a guest on. You may or may not have heard of this individual. His name is Rabbi David Feldman, and he's an Orthodox Jew from, I don't know where he lives, but somewhere down, closer to New York City, and he's a follower of Rabbi Weiss. And there was a divergence in the 30s about, saying that, the idea of having a state and having, a national identity is actually not, it's against what's written in the Torah,
Yes.
in their interpretation. Okay. And so interestingly enough, they're very pro-Palestinian, for the reasons that you were just mentioning. And they've gained a lot of attention lately because, it's kind of freaks. I said to him last week I had him, I said, doesn't it freak people out? You show up with the traditional wear and the fur hat and the garb, but you're wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh or something. And he says, yeah, it blows their minds. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I think, I think one of the great issues is the lack of understanding by non-Jews, especially of the differences, that, because the great concern that David Feldman talks about is ironically the great sad consequence of this is it is leading to more hate crimes against Jews because people don't understand that difference.
That's true. It does. It is fomenting the rise. And there's a rise in anti-Semitism, and most of it is not coming. None of it is really coming from the Palestine Solidarity movement, but it is coming from the far right. It's coming from certainly some of the far right Christian movement, and some of it does get escalated because people look at what Israel does and they think that that's what Jewish people are about.
Well, what I'm sort of getting at is, when Trump was elected, it sort of gave bigots and racists a platform. Oh, well, he said it, so now I can say it, and I can come out of the woodworks and say things publicly that I would not have said before. 2 weeks ago, somebody put I don't know what their intention was, but there's a temple just over there on Albany Avenue, and somebody had put a very nasty written something on the temple. I think I won't say the word on radio.
We don't want you to get fined.
It starts with the letter F, and it's a word for fornicating. And it said, F Israel, and it's like, what is that? Why is that? Whoever did that has completely the wrong idea.
Yeah, they would be more accurate if they put it on the wall of the State Department.
Sure, or
the AIPAC's offices.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't think that action, as ignorant as it is, and as misplaced as it is, that particular action, I don't think that reflects the greater reality that's going on, because I'm Jewish and I've been around for 82 years. And as far as I can see, there has been anti-Semitism all along, but in my life it hasn't been extreme. I experienced some in the Army when I was in the airborne, but it hasn't been, really extreme. It wasn't what my grandparents left Russia to get away from the pogroms for. It was nothing like that. But it's always been here. And it gets encouraged when, people like Trump get up on their pulpit and start giving exactly what you said, rein to people's deeper feelings that they may not have been willing to have had the courage to express.
Well, I don't know
And
if
what
it would take
Israel
courage
is,
to say, but
well, courage is, whatever,
balls,
the
chutzpah
the
or
chutzpah,
whatever.
right. And then to see what Israel has been doing and the animosity of not the animosity, but the displeasure, I would say, of the global community, not identifying with it. In fact, being horrified by what Israel is doing. Absolutely horrified. You have the global community. So this empowers some of the people who take it to that, anti-Semite extreme. But I don't think it's rampant. I think the worst anti-Semitism comes from, I'll say it, Israel, because they betray the primary Judaic principles, and they are inspiring ignorant people to become anti-Semitic. But you know what? I am not concerned with that. I'm going to be totally honest. Anti-Semitism is not my problem. I do not make it a main issue. I am concerned right now with the oppression of people who I identify with, all people, whether it's the Lakota Sioux out at Standing Rock where Veterans for Peace was there with them, or it's the black community being oppressed, or it's the Palestinians or the Okinawans or the South Koreans in Jeju Island. This is who we stand with. This is who Veterans for Peace stands with, because we're veterans. We've seen that other side of it, and we woke up. We woke up to what this country is doing and what this country is facilitating. So we stand with these people. That's the issue. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about, anti-Semitism because I'm Jewish. I'm sorry. That is not a major issue. Major issue is genocide. Major issue is apartheid in Israel, has been for a long time. And this didn't start on October 7th. It started a long time ago.
I mean, that's something, the current narrative, kind of pushes in that direction, but people, don't realize. But the Nakba, 1948, the Six-Day War,
Right.
The rest of it, the endless persecution that goes on, the segregation. But have you been to Israel?
We've both
We've
been.
both been. I've been to the West Bank 5 times, or 6 when you count the trip when I was 6 years old, and it wasn't even occupied by Israel at that point.
What year was that? Do you remember?
1966.
Oh, okay.
But 5 times as an adult, I've traveled there and seen a lot.
And we've been there together,
We were there together
twice.
twice with delegations of veterans.
And also including IDF veterans who were with us.
Well, what was the gentleman's name that also, he spoke quite a bit at the thing? He used to be in the IDF. Do you remember his name?
Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill, yeah.
Mark Hamill, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, well, that film was very powerful for him because he grew
Lived
up.
it.
He lived that.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah, and his parents were Holocaust survivors, and he grew up in that milieu, and his eyes got opened also. And
You think?
oh yeah, no, he understands the nature of Zionism at this point,
Yeah.
and has for a long time, and does very good work.
Well, I'm sort of dovetailing that conversation I had with Rabbi Feldman, with the conversation I had today, an interview that I conducted earlier today, but it's for next week's show with a friend of mine, actually. His name is Shmuel Veffer, and he's a settler lives in Tiberias, near the Sea of Galilee.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most striking things that he said to me today in the interview, because we're friends, we try and, even though I fundamentally disagree with him on principle, there's a lot to learn from having a conversation with somebody that you totally agree with, if you can maintain some civil discourse. And one of the things that he said to me, which really kind of blew my mind, He said, Judaism is not a religion. In his interpretation. I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, it's a code of conduct. It's a book of rules.
I like the code of conduct part. There is a deeper essence to Judaism than is in any book of rules, as set forth if you're just limiting the spiritual aspect of something, which I'm talking about, this is deeper, more profound aspect to what is written, you are really missing. You are just at the surface, And then, so there's something much deeper involved in Judaism. To me, and to most Jewish people, I think, even without articulating it, there's a sense of humor, there's a sense of theater, there's an intelligence and an ability or a desire to look into things more deeply, to think about things more deeply. And to me, if you do that, if you look for truth, which is basically what is the essence of Judaism, is to looking for truth. If you look for truth, if you really look for truth honestly, you're going to see certain things. And you're going to be appalled by certain things. And you're going to stand for other things. This is just the way it is. This is not any super spiritual way of being. This is just being human. Right. Just being a human being. So that's what to me, Judaism means. And that's the same, in the essence of every, whatever you want to call it, religion or path, Zen, is just be human, and have your eyes open. So I like the code of conduct because that comes with a code of conduct. It's not written down, but as you look for truth, you develop a code of conduct. You develop a code that says violence is not the way.
Well, it was very strange. I mean, I'm not criticizing my friend Shmuel, but it was an odd leap of some kind of mental leap of faith to go from the idea that Judaism is not a religion to then justifying this idea that somehow it's through some revelations and that's held the Jewish people.
Right. That makes it right into
now
a
we have to have a homeland, and I'm still trying to work that out.
What I like to say is, when this business of God gave us this land, right? And that's used, not by all of them, but it's used to justify a lot of the settler mentality. Hey, God gave us this. This is our land by God.
Yeah, 3,400 years ago.
That's an interesting kind of God you got. This sort of real estate agent in the sky that gives you land.
Now his humor is coming.
So So when you think about that, and you think, wait a minute, what kind of God is this? This is a God that you worship and everything. It sounds like a real estate agent. So anyway, but that's how ludicrous it is. That's how ridiculous it is to buy into that. But I think that most of the people don't even buy into it. Literally, they don't really believe it, but they use it. It's used. It's a technique that's used, and this thing about Israel has a right to defend itself. Another technique. This whole thing about any criticism of Israel is it's anti-Semitism.
Well, apparently wearing this is anti-Semitic.
It could be.
Somebody said
could be, yeah.
Some guy, I saw a clip last week on TikTok where some minister of culture in Israel said wearing a keffiyeh is like wearing a swastika. I thought, wow, where are you coming up with that?
It is so backwards.
Well, but, actually, it's also, it's not just some extremist minister in Israel. There were some people who were turned away from the museum. I think it was the Metropolitan Museum in New York. They were wearing keffiyehs, and they were turned away. And the keffiyehs had embroidered into them a little Palestinian flag, and that was what they said. They said, we have a policy that we don't allow people to wear a national flag. That I'm sure.
If the guy was wearing a baseball hat with an American flag, you think they wouldn't have let him in there?
I think
that's
someone
wild.
That someone should call that what it is, and I won't say that on the radio. But so it's not just some extremist minister in Israel. It's down to practicalities in this country of the people who are standing up for the Palestinians in this country are facing a whole new set of McCarthyistic
absolutely
stuff.
So if
Yeah.
you want to talk about discrimination, if you want to talk about something, you're talking about someone wants to bring up anti-Semitism. What about all these people?
You're talking
They're
about
nonviolent.
You're talking about peace is bad for business, my friend.
Exactly.
Wall Street.
Exactly.
I saw a very quick clip. I don't know why I'm subscribing to some financial journal. It comes in your feed, and it said "Future's up after Iran strikes Israel." And I was like, "Oh, great!"
That is so
Rah, rah, rah.
honest. That is so honest.
At least they're honest,
And they don't even see. Do you realize what you just said? Do you realize you're talking about a possible prelude to World War III, and you're saying things are up because your profit margin went up because you're connected to the military-industrial complex? I mean, come on. There's an insanity here. I'm serious.
No,
I'm not. This is not joking.
You're as they say down south, you're preaching to the choir, brother.
I mean, really, there's an insanity at work here. Wait a minute. You can't see how serious this is, and all you're concerned with, and they are. You're concerned with profit. You're under some sort of delusional vision of reality. You're not seeing reality at all because your billions are not going to save you.
No, not in the long run.
First of all, the climate is collapsing. We have this threat of nuclear war. We are spending trillions of dollars on militarism in one way or another. Sending $14 billion in weapons to Israel is another thing, and on and on and on and on. There's no end to it, and these things are.
I have this, I'm unfortunately, you know how it is. Once you've been around long enough, you become you start to see through things in a certain way that maybe you wouldn't have when you were younger. And I never like to sound like a conspiracy theorist because that really upsets me. But when things clearly became very, as they say in Australia, going pear-shaped, which means not good, in Ukraine. I mean, that war is, we know, anybody who doesn't know what's happened in Ukraine has had their head in the sand because that war
doesn't want to know.
That war was lost. And it almost feels like, it's like, hey, look over here. Don't be looking over there in Ukraine. Because,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
like
that's perfect.
Wag the dog.
That's absolutely perfect. And also, it's not obvious to people. Well, people don't do any in-depth research, and it's just taking CNN or whatever. But wait a minute. Let's talk about before that war started, the years before that war started. Do you know the history? What was going on there?
No, people don't. They don't.
Do you even know that the U.S. and NATO had militarized, weapons right near the Russian border?
I'd like to talk about Ukraine because, as I just said, it's kind of slowly falling off the radar. But I think it's a very crucial subject.
Oh, it's another.
And you're listening to The Long Way Round. I'm your host, Malcolm Byrne. My special guests now in the studio are Tarak Kauf and his wife, his lovely wife, Ellen Davidson. Welcome back to the air. Before we go to another very hot button topic, we're going to talk about the Peace Walk. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to play a piece of music that you had suggested. So would you like to intro the piece so we know what we're listening to here?
This is it's a great piece and a video with it. And, unfortunately, your listeners can't see the video, but they can go find it. It's called Move the Money. And it's great. What's his name?
Uncle D.
Uncle D, yeah.
Uncle D, okay.
Uncle D. And it's about how our tax money flows into corporate hands and how that affects everything that we do and how it ultimately flows into the hands of the military.
Yeah.
And the Pentagon.
Well,
he's talking about moving the money back to
social needs, to our communities.
Excellent.
There's actually there's been legislation that people have been pushing in New York City, where I live some of the time. In the city council they had a resolution where they wanted to, to state that the money should be the tax money that goes from New York into the military should actually go into solving New York's problems. And if you look at how much money each community pays into just the military budget, there'd be no homelessness.
It always kills me when people say, "Well, we don't have enough money for this or that." I'm like, "Yes, we do."
Yes, we do. We're just putting it into
$36
guns.
billion from New York City goes to the military.
Oh my God!
Can you? I mean, you could solve every problem in the state. You could solve every problem in the country with that.
We could all be on UBI by now. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway, this blew me away when I saw it.
Okay.
I just somehow I
all
said,
right, here we go.
Okay.
Move the money.
In national news, the official poverty rate remains steady at 11.5%, with 37.9 million people in poverty in 2022, according to the Federal Census Bureau. Despite these numbers, more than 2/3 of the U.S. House of Representatives voted in favor of increasing the Pentagon's budget to a record $886 billion in annual military spending.
Hey Congress, we demand from you, move the money. And the president needs to hear this too, move the money. Both parties playing us like a fool, move the money. We want to feed the people, yes we do, move the money. We got the students, the teachers, the pre-K, the seniors, the budgets are cut, so teachers are leaving, the music and arts, the students, they want it. But just like free lunch, politicians, they cut it. So Congress can give more money for war that makes the rich richer and increasing the poor. So don't you dare laugh, cause it's not funny. We have to organize to move the money. Hey Congress, we demand from you, move the money. And the president needs to hear this too, move the money. Both parties playing us like a fool, move the money. We want to feed the people, yes we do, move the money. More cuts to healthcare, housing, and food. Society is crumbling, becoming unglued. Carjackings, drive-bys, and even mass shootings. We can do a lot to change. Who are we fooling? Invest in programs like health and nutrition. No more military bases, guns, and ammunition. No money for housing makes us feel crummy. We all must unite to fight to move the money. Hey Congress, we demand from you, move the money. And the president needs to hear this too, move the money. Both parties playing us like a fool, move the money. We want to feed the people, yes we do, move the money. There are 750 U.S. military bases in over 80 countries. That's a lot of places. The U.S. is the #1 supplier of guns. They end up in our streets killing our daughters and our sons. Both parties increase the Pentagon's budget, who never ever in their history passed an audit. They can't even say ceasefire, how cruddy. So it's up to us to make them move the money. Hey Congress, we demand from you, move the money. And the president needs to hear this too, move the money. Both parties playing us like a fool, move the money. We want to feed the people, yes we do, move the money. I say we need gun control at the Pentagon. We need gun control at the Pentagon. I say we need gun control at the Pentagon. Say Congress making bombs. We need gun control at the Pentagon. We need gun control at the Pentagon. We need gun control at the Pentagon. Hey, we got to move that money. No more bombs. Say no to war in Africa. Thank you, Junkyard.
Move the money. Uncle Devin, is that their name?
Uncle Devin.
Uncle Devin. Cool track. Great track.
And from what I understand, he does a lot of work with kids.
Well, you know, the previous guest, Chris Hewitt, whom you met just as you arrived,
Right.
Chris is very involved in the local currency and so forth, and sort of it's a similar, it's an approach to reinvesting in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get away from all of this kind of insanity, really, when you think about it.
It's just we're being
I mean,
screwed.
if aliens came to this planet, they'd be like, these people are
Wait a minute.
hopeless. No wonder they haven't come here yet. They've
They
been
might
watching.
have been here. Check it out. We don't want to hang around here. No, I'm not taking a vacation
Nah,
there.
it's a nice planet, but those people, they got to go.
You know who I feel for? I mean, humans have done a tremendous job in messing up. Not all humans. Some humans are beautiful, and many humans are beautiful. But there's a small percentage of sociopaths and psychopaths who have really done enormous damage. And I feel also for the animals.
Of course.
Because the animals haven't done this. And the animals are an example. You know, indigenous people looked at the wolves and the bears and the eagles as teachers. Wait a minute. That wasn't just a kind of fantasy thing. They were real teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they knew how to live more sustainably without destroying the planet, you know. And they didn't need to make inventions in order to make them make more money or feel more comfortable or accumulate more. You know, they knew how to live, and they knew how to live in good part because of their relationship. This is indigenous with the natural world,
living in harmony,
which means our four-legged, our winged, all those relations to us. You know, they got it right. They got it right. It's not fantasy; it's real.
And he goes further than that in that some of the stuff that the military does, which particularly destroys animal life, is also destroying the planet. For example, whales are they're like a global keystone species in terms of how they interact with the ocean and the life in the ocean and the atmosphere. And the Navy is down there at their submarines, and they're throwing their sonar all over the place, and it makes the whales crazy, and they beach, and so there's a direct connection between militarism and messing with the animals and destroying the planet.
And the Navy actually knows it.
Yeah,
it's not like they even deny
I
it.
don't think they're stupid people.
Yeah.
You know,
No, they're not stupid people. It's so it shows you, well, what kind of intelligence is it that we really need? You know, is this the kind of intelligence we need? Or do we need the intelligence of how to live naturally and simply without damaging everything around you? To make you greater, or what kind of, it's a crazy mentality.
Well, luckily there is a lot of movement to reconnect with those values, you know, especially amongst the younger generation.
Good point. Yeah,
so
it's a good point.
But I'd like to talk about the Walk for Peace, which is coming up fast and furious.
Well,
right.
One of the reasons that song in particular is on our Peace Walk 2024.org website is because one of the things we wanted to do was get down on the ground in local communities and talk about how militarism is affecting those communities. And one of the ways is the money. And so in each community, you can say, well, your community is sending, you know, $3.6 million, say it's a small town, $3.6 million a year in your federal taxes is going to the military. What could your community do with an extra $3.6 million? And I'm sure they've got a lot of ideas what they could do with that.
But just in sort of logistical terms, where does the walk start and where does it finish and how far is it?
So it's starting in Maine and it's going down to Washington, D.C., and it's about 600 miles, I think. We're still adjusting the route. So
and you're going to do it, Tarak?
I'm not going to do the whole thing.
I
can't. I could. A couple of years ago, I could have. You know.
Yeah, when you were still a young guy, 78.
No, but aside from that, aside from the physicality of it, I just can't get away. You know, physically, for that length of time. But we do have some people who are doing it, who are doing the whole thing.
Well, I want you to give me the website and everything for people who are listening. There might be people listening right now who are like, hell, I want to do it.
It starts October 7th. It starts
May 7th.
No, May 7th. Where did I get October
That's
from?
the date that will live in infamy.
October 7th.
That was the Gaza.
Okay, right. We were just talking about that. Sorry.
May 7th.
But May 7th in Algonquin, Maine.
Algonquin, Maine?
Algonquin.
No, Algonquin.
Algonquin.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Oh, gun, quit.
Oh, gun, quit. Oh, gun, quit.
Yeah.
Quit those guns.
So
That's wow.
did you not? No.
Oh, gun, quit. Somebody's playing with you.
No,
No.
that's great. We had never noticed that. It's perfect.
And what's, for someone who's listening right now and they're like, yes, I want to do this. Where would they-
Peacewalk2024.org. So it starts in Maine. It's going down. It's mostly sticking along the coast from down, taking US 1 down through New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. Then when we hit New York, we go a little inland and then over to New Jersey and down to Philadelphia. We're probably going to go a little bit through Delaware because we would really like to go to the home of the
Rehoboth Beach. Liz Hill,
militarist in
Liz Hill, if
chief.
you're listening.
No, we'd like to hit the home of the militarist in chief there in Wilmington, and then down through Maryland to DC. And the skeleton of the schedule is on the website, and we're still, as we're organizing on the ground, and people on the ground are saying, this is maybe not the best road to walk on because
this would be great to go here, and we
Yeah,
have
or there's-
connections here, and the people would be very receptive to the
there's
message of
there's a
stopping
submarine base
genocide
in
and all that.
Connecticut where
So
we can stop, and there's a nuclear power
And-
plant here, and
And will there be quite a number? I mean, will there be a good contingent of actual veterans of various different conflicts?
there's some veterans. I don't know how many will actually. I don't know.
there will be
People who've registered so far. You can go online and register to keep up with what's going on, or to register to walk, so forth and so on. But I have no way of looking at all of those people. But I am finding out people are getting in touch with me, are veterans, But it's definitely not all veterans.
No, I don't mean.
Yeah.
But
But I don't know how many. I can't answer that.
But there's some.
I think, if you look at Veterans for Peace, it's made up of a significant majority of Vietnam era veterans. And I think we still have 2 or 3 World War II, but those are, alas, we're losing them. And there's some Korean War veterans still around. And then you get into the
Iraq, Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. The guy who's going to walk the whole route he's an Iraq vet.
Also, people in all, I think every state there are veterans for peace who are involved in organizing this and participating in it.
Okay.
And we do have a number of people who are going to come up from New York, from Veterans for Peace. Anthony's coming up for a week.
Yeah,
and
so
other
people
people are coming up. So I don't have a number, but they'll be there.
And I think what's going to happen also is there will be people who take long, walk for a week or walk like this one person who's walking the whole way. And then there will be people who come in for a day or two, local people who come when the march is near them. And so as the organizing is picking up steam and people are hearing about it, veterans are coming to us and saying, yeah, we want to help organize this.
I would actually like to, those are all logistical details, but I would rather talk about the spirit of the walk and why this idea emerged. And I won't claim any credit for it. Things emerge and, sometimes you're listening and you pick up on something. For years, we're activists and we do things, to show our objection to war and to try and promote peace and so forth like that. And we've been doing it for a long time, actually. And things are, by the way I'm looking at it, there's a destructive force that's just getting more and more powerful and more dangerous. So I'm thinking to myself, what can we do? We've got to wake people up in larger numbers, It's great. We have a small percentage of really awakened people who are looking at things and, everything we were talking about before. But I was thinking, how can we reach more people? And I thought, well, walking is a very nonviolent thing. And if you do it right, it's a very peaceful thing. And what this walk is standing for is everything that people need. You know, I mean, not that we're delivering everything, but this is what we stand for, and this is what we believe. This is the kind of world that we have. These people have the courage to believe can be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything. So part of that is calling out some of the things that are leading us astray, like the money that's going to the Pentagon, and then bringing it back to communities. And we need to think about this. Your community, your relatively small community, is spending $34 million a year. This is just typical, you know, going to the Pentagon for what? You know, we have military bases that have to be paid for all over the world. We're an empire. For what? How is it affecting your life? And you have needs here in your community. You know, so I mean, besides the ethical part of it and the moral part of it,
sure.
We feel that it's important to appeal to people's interest, and then maybe their eyes will start to open more. You know, or maybe they're on board totally right away.
One of the you know, when you look, sort of pull back in historical terms, broader historical terms, I'm talking going back to, say, the Roman Empire. all empires kind of their downfall is inevitably the same. They overextend. Like the Roman Empire extended out and out and out, and eventually it was unsustainable, and it collapsed very quickly. And the same thing happened with the Ottoman Empire. Same thing happened to the British Empire, and many will say that this is what we're seeing with the American Empire, that we're so overextended.
Yeah, but the question is, when it goes down, how is it going to go down?
Well,
is it going to take the whole
unfortunately,
planet with it?
You know,
And that's that's one of the things that we want to work on. But I want to back up for a second just to talk about walking and why walking through these communities is so important. And it's because all of the online organizing in the world is not as powerful as reaching people in person, face to face, and really touching people in a personal, one-on-one way. So when you're walking through the communities, you're there in person, in the flesh. It's not some meme. It's not a bunch of, you know, electrons floating around on the internet. And I think that that's a very important aspect of why we wanted to do this walking thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
and I also wanted to pick apart we're saying peace and planet, justice and democracy, and Tarak was saying, you know, we're talking about all the things that people need. So the peace is obviously, we've got to stop these wars. The planet is, we're destroying this environment. This is the big existential threat that we're all facing, that our children are facing, our grandchildren. The justice is about oppression of some communities being more oppressed than other communities. And so it's not just why can't we all get along? It's looking at what is justice for all human beings. And then the democracy is about the corporate control of our whole formal electoral process in this country and how our elections are completely hijacked by big money. So I just wanted to, those are the sort of 4 pillars of what we're trying to do and say on this walk.
It also, people are joining the walk because walking for peace is empowering. You've just, every step you take, you feel like, why are you doing this? I'm doing it for peace. And then you think about, what does peace mean? You know, it's not just a word, but what's it mean? And what's it mean to me? And when you walk that way, you're empowering your own humanity. So I think it's terrific.
You know, we had this eclipse about a week ago or whenever it was, and just, you know, a lot of what we're talking about revolves around our basic fundamental attitudes to ourselves, our place in the universe, and our relationship. A friend of mine, he does a show here, Tiokasin Ghost Horse, and he said to me a long time ago, he said, kind of like, it was kind of paraphrasing John F. Kennedy's "Ask not what your country can do for you." He said, "Don't ask what Mother Earth can do for you. Ask what you can do for Mother Earth." And I was thinking about the eclipse, and you know, everyone was like, "Oh, we're going to look at the eclipse. We're going to have a party. We're going to look up there. We're going to get our glasses." And it's turning into this ridiculous thing, a spectacle. And I was curious. I thought, I wonder in indigenous culture how they look at eclipses. So I went and I found something about the Diné, the Navajo, and their approach to the eclipse is completely different. It's not a spectacle.
No, they stay inside.
Stay inside, fast. It's just such a reversal. And
just take it on a deeper level. It's just...
If we could start doing that. We have to go to another set of public service announcements before we've only got about 9 minutes left. But we're going to do that, and then we'll be right back to just finish up this interview. So please stay tuned. We're going to be back in exactly 1 minute and 39 seconds.
Hi, I'm Aaron Robinson, Site Manager of Senate House State Historic Site. We're open to visitors for the 2024 season, Wednesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sundays from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. through the end of October. Visit us for a guided tour of Senate House, the 18th century home of Abraham Van Gaspeak and meeting place of the first New York State Senate. Then, visit our museum building with 2 floors of exhibits on Kingston history. Admission is $7 for adults, $5 for seniors, and children 12 and younger are free. We hope to see you soon. For more information about our tours, special events, and everything Senate House, visit our Facebook page at Senate House State Historic Site.
Hi, I'm Teresa Whitman from I Want What She Has. Every Monday afternoon from 1 to 3, we're amplifying women's voices.
Women had power through talk.
And their stories.
My curiosity outweighs any fear.
Highlighting how women are living life on their own terms.
I don't want to follow the rules anymore. I want to do what I want to do that feels good.
And breaking free from patriarchal structures.
But misbehaving is really just stepping outside the confines of society.
Going deep into systems change.
Sure, astrology can be revolutionary if it's obstructive to capitalism because you don't go to work because it's a full moon or whatever,
And how we take care of ourselves and each other. That's I Want What She Has, your weekly antidote to the patriarchy. Monday afternoons from 1 to 3 here on Radio Kingston, AM 1490, FM 1079, or anytime on radiokingston.org.
Well, it's kind of sad to say that this hour has gone by far quicker than even I was anticipating, because it's been a very interesting and engaging conversation, and there's so much more that we could talk about. My guests are Tarak Kauf and Ellen Davidson, and we're talking about the Veterans for Peace March, which is coming up very soon. So I'd like to have you both just, a minute or so, just kind of give us some last thoughts for those listening in the audience to take away that you think might be something that they could... They're pointing at each other. You go first.
All right, I will go first. So I just, first, it's interesting that I make the same mistake sometimes calling it a peace march. And a lot of people in Veterans for Peace will tell you, I don't march anymore. And I think that that's because they have this experience that they have been, even veterans who are not combat veterans have had the experience of having their personality deconstructed by the military in order to be turned into
Marines.
Yeah, in order to be turned into a creature that kills others of their same species. That takes some breaking down of your humanity. Wow. And so veterans have a very strong understanding of what that's about. And so this walk is about rebuilding our humanity and our community.
Great. Thank you, Ellen.
That's a nice way to put it. And I agree with you. What can I say about the walk? I'm kind of excited about it. I'm kind of a little nervous or apprehensive that something will not go right, but I'm sure something will not go right.
There'll be something, of course.
It,
It wouldn't be life without it.
But I'm getting more excited as the time approaches, and I wish... I'm going to try and take as much time as I can to be on there. But we're also raising an 11-month-old 100-pound puppy at home. It takes a lot.
Okay.
And you can't just abandon somebody.
Not
That's
at that age.
To me, that's like a child. It's like when I was raising my daughter. But I'm getting more excited about it. And I'm going to spend as much time as I can out there. And I think it will have a life of its own. I don't feel that I have to direct it. It does have a life of its own.
Well, don't forget to post TikTok, every hour or so. You got to get your little 10-minute, 10-second TikTok clip.
Be doing.
That's
You
that
want
part
to
of the
see the
revolution
walk?
will not be broken.
Come in person.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, okay.
And I think people are going to join more and more as we continue.
Well, it's a Sisyphean uphill struggle, as I often say, to do this.
Talking about my life. I've used that metaphor.
One of my favorite quotes is Mickey Rooney back some 30-odd years ago. He was on one of these talk shows. I don't know if it was like Johnny Carson or something, and they said, because he was getting on in years, and they were like, well, what would you like people to, remember you for? And he said, I've already told my wife, I'm on my grave, just write, I tried.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you can do, That's all you can do. So
it says a lot.
Keeps trying. Yeah. So we're going to go out with a track here that you've suggested. It's a Jackson Browne track called Lives in the Balance.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah,
it's absolutely an honor.
It's really been
honor and a pleasure.
Likewise.
I'd like to have you back. Maybe come back after the walk, and we can talk about how things went.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks very much to Tarak Kauf and Ellen Davidson and Veterans for Peace. And the website is, again,
peacewalk2024.org.
There you go. So get out there, do some walking for peace. Have a great night. And if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see you next week. Stay tuned for Freedom Highway with Nick Pankin coming up right after this.
I've been waiting for something to happen for a week or a month or a year, with the blood in the ink of the headlines and the sound of the crowd in my ear. You might ask what it takes to remember when you know that you've seen it before, where a government lies to a people and a country is drifting to war. And there's a shadow on the faces of the men who send the guns to the wars that are fought in places where the business interest runs. On the radio, talk shows, on TV, you hear one thing again and again, how the USA stands for freedom, and we come to the aid of a friend. But who are the ones that we call our friends? These governments killing their own, or the people who finally can't take anymore, and they pick up a gun or a brick or a stone, and their lives in the balance. There are people under fire, there are children at the cannons, and there is blood on the wire. There's a shadow on the faces of the men who fan the flames of the wars that are fought in places we can't even